Boom, boom, boom. What's going on, everyone? Got a little bit shorter stream today, but we've got about 3 hours. 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, about 2.5 hours we can work on today. Day 4 of 100 as a new streamer. Really just trying to get a lot of things set up with the stream. Trying to get some different scenes set up. I said I would have some background music, but I don't have that set up yet. Kind of why I'm gonna have a shorter stream today, so I can set some more things up when I get finished. But I do have the overlay for the stream chat, so I can actually see what everyone's saying a little bit easier. So that's good. Let's switch over here to this. Good deal. So if y'all say what's up, you'll be able to see yourself in the chat or on the screen. So let's see here. Some stuff we're going to be working on today. So we are working on kdoitall, which is a workspace automation tool. You can find it on GitHub. My username is the same as Twitch, Codeman Ethan, and it's the only project that I have up right now. It doesn't have any stars yet because I really haven't been pushing it around yet, because I really want to make sure it's in a stable version, it's stable before I start showing it to the community. But we are fairly close. I think really it's just getting rid of the rest of these edge cases for the core functionality of kdoitall, which is you're able to pick out the applications that you want to launch on your desktop, and it will automatically launch them and will place them in the right positions. If you have like multiple virtual desktops, then it's going to throw it on whatever desktop you want. It can put it on different screens, and it also has like 8 default positions that you can utilize, and then like a whole bunch of extra ones that you can add in as well. So it's got a lot of cool customization to it. And so right now we're just kind of dealing with the core functionality of it, which is that probably the reason that you don't see a whole lot of applications like this, because it gets kind of difficult when you try to launch an application and then you have to determine on your operating system what window actually popped up, like what actually happened when you launched that application, because it's pretty easy just to run a command to launch whatever application. You can just launch it through the desktop file, or there's a few simple ways to launch applications. But once you launch it, like, it's kind of no telling what actually happened. Sometimes you might have an application take 5 to 10 seconds to load. Sometimes there might be like a splash window that pops up before the actual window pops up. Sometimes there's some kind of like notification window. So I have like it works for simple applications. If you just have you try to launch something and within the first 5 seconds it's popped up and it's there, then we're pretty like close to 100% reliable for detecting those windows and making the right determinations. But we're just going to go through some applications that I have on my operating system and just see how kdoitall handles them, and then we'll add in edge cases, add in some logic to handle these edge cases. We are doing AI assisted. I work with Claude. Right now we're on Claude Opus 4.6 extended thinking. And this has been a very good model. I've been pretty impressed with this model, honestly. I haven't really used Opus in a while. For a while I thought it was just like kind of doing a lot of extra thinking, and was more so losing his train of thought and making wrong decisions than actually thinking well. But that was probably 2 or 3 models ago. So I do like Opus 4.6 quite a bit. So I'm going to be a little bit careful about what we do here today. I just don't want to give away any private information just by like launching random applications that maybe shows something I don't want to be shown. So I might be launching applications on my other screen, but I'll try to talk about what's going on. So I found the main edge case that we're going to be dealing with and adding logic for, which is the splash windows, because we don't have logic in there to handle that. Basically, if an application launches and there's like a quick window that pops up that will actually disappear before the main window comes up, then kdoitall is going to be like, oh, there it is, and then doesn't really have any other logic to be like, oh, well, that one just disappeared and now there's a new window. So we're going to be doing that, and we have to handle it in a few different ways. Basically, we have there's about 3 different aspects we're going to have to handle it in, which is we have a safe mode launch, which is basically a launch type that you can do for applications that's going to gather the metadata for it. It's going to like launch it in a safe way and be sure that it's attaching to the right window, and it's going to verify with the user. And then from that point, it can gather some metadata so that for future launches, it already has that metadata and is much more reliable in launching those windows. So we'll have to add some logic to that. And then in our core functionality, which is just when you're normally using kdoitall, and you launch an application, then we'll have to handle it there, and we'll have to handle it either with the metadata or without the metadata. So, without the metadata, it's going to be a little bit more tricky, and it might take a little bit longer for it to detect the window, but we want to see if we can still do that reliably. And then if that metadata does exist, then it should be pretty straightforward in determining what it is. And we'll just add the logic in for that as well. So let's see. So I had let's pull up a terminal, and let's go kdoitall workspace list. So I've made a workspace tester 2. I think we're going to be testing out Digicam, which is an application that I found that has a splash window that starts up. It's got a little bit of a strange launch behavior, so if we can handle that in kdoitall, then that's going to be make things a lot better. But I do need to launch that in a separate window just to see what's going on with it. So let's go with, we're going to create a workspace. So kdoitall workspace create, we'll call it test 3. We don't need any details for it, and we're going to go Digicam, and let's see here. Okay, found the number 24. The window name, we can use the default window name, that's fine. We're going to go virtual desktop. We'll just go with the one that we're on, which is 1. The detected screens, I'm going to have it launch on my other window just so I can see how it launches. And then we'll go, full screen. That's fine. Okay. And we're just going to do that one application. Just so we can figure out what's going on. And we'll focus Digicam whenever we finish. Okay, we'll confirm that configuration and create the workspace. Very good. And then let's just see, because I've already kind of worked through some of the logic. Let's go into that session I was working on and just kind of see if I can refresh myself and see where we're at. Okay, so I did make a plan file for it. That's correct. So let's actually look through that plan file. Splash window handling. Okay. So the main thing we're looking at with this plan file is, how we kind of separate ourselves from being a vibe coders versus versus AI assisted. Let me grab a drink. Is that we're actually going to scrutinize this plan. And, this is like the core functionality of kdoitall. So we do need to be careful with every piece of logic that we add into it. Because every piece, kind of adds more complexity and potentially more wait time as well. So the one thing we mainly want to look out for is that we're not doing like an overkill here. Which there may be a few instances where that takes place, because every piece of logic that you add in, every extra check, every extra conditional is also potentially adds in another edge case. You already have edge cases that exist outright, but then the more logic you add into your program, you potentially just keep creating more and more edge cases. So that's something we're going to try to not have. So let's go over this. The problem summary: applications like Digicam create transient windows, splash windows, dialogues, or loading screens before their actual main window appears. The current detection logic grabs the first new UUID, which is something kdoitall creates, and declares victory, leading to incorrect launch measurements. The wrong metadata is gathered. The close window is unable to work correctly. And right, yeah, okay. So that just kind of, we also are showing kind of the launch behavior that happened, which whenever I launched it, it showed a dialog that I had to actually click through, and then after that it showed a splash window, and then it showed the final window. So it's even kind of like an extra step where it's not just doing the splash window, but there's like an initial dialog window, and then it either has to direct a user to that dialog window. Like, this is probably where things get the most tricky, because we could pretty easily handle just a splash window. That's not too hard. You can just detect if it's there, and then detect a second or so later, is it still there? If it's not, then you can just search for that class again or something. But when you have like the initial dialog window that has to be clicked through, and then that window disappears, and then a splash window comes, and then that disappears, and then the real window comes. Hopefully this is like the deepest complexity I'm going to have to deal with here, because there's not a whole lot of other major edge cases that I haven't already dealt with. Maybe just like an extended launch time. But it's going to get a little tricky. So we might be struggling a little bit today and just thinking through it. And if y'all have any ideas on how to deal with this, I would also appreciate some opinions, some outside opinions. So let's go through the rest of this plan file. Okay, so we have our core function, get UUID by process of elimination, can detect transient system windows, which are basically, it can detect like if a notification window pops up, it knows to ignore it, because they usually have a certain class that they're assigned to, whether it's like a shell, like a plasma shell, or like a KDE something. You can see we have like a list of things here: plasma shell, KWin, Wayland. Yeah, just a bunch of different class types that are not going to be applications. So we want to basically ignore those. Okay. This is one thing that is a potential issue, and I don't really, oh crap. I don't think that we're going to need this. It's so the proposed solution, we have our block listed class, which again ignores those classes such as plasma shell and KWin and stuff like that. Empty class and empty title window hasn't been initialized yet, or is a tooltip helper artifact. Yeah, I've never actually seen a window be detected without a class. Usually if it can be detected, then it already has a class to it. So I've never actually seen that be a case, so I'm not even sure adding in that would be beneficial necessarily. So it might be something we want to test first. And then the tiny window with empty title. So geometry below the minimum threshold combined with an empty or missing title. This catches tray icons and tooltip like windows. Again, I could see someone launching a window and, like they want it to be a small window for whatever reason. So I don't think that's really a piece of logic we want to add in either. Okay. So the main thing I'm actually interested in is let's determine for these splash windows, are the splash windows containing titles, and do they already have classes defined? Because these are pieces of metadata that we can use to help determine the correct window. So we'd actually ran a test that I think we can look through the log for. Yeah, I think it's right here. This is basically just when I launched it, I just kept querying kdoitall over and over again, and yes, we can see that it definitely has the class already. I see a bunch of plasma shells in here. I think that's just because that's not going through kdoitall. That's just through kdoitall, so it's not ignoring the ones we want to ignore. So that's actually fine. Let's go towards the bottom and see what the final state was, and we'll actually start from the bottom. Okay, yep. So this is when it detected the window. It's got the class org.kde digicam. It's got the window title, which is digicam as well. And if we go up here, we can see the 3 plasma shells. So I'm guessing one of those is the one that we're thinking of. Probably do a better test for this. Let's see. And Claude already analyzed that, so we can actually just ask that in this session. And we'll just kind of address what's going on here. So let's go back here. We're going to grab our proposed solution. We'll go to Claude. We'll show what we're talking about. Let's address the proposed solution. Based on the log given earlier when we tested the launch, the digicam launch, was there ever a point when the class was empty for the splash window, or if the window title was empty for the splash window? I have yet to ever see kdoitall detect a window that does not have a class. So I don't think that is a valid check. The same may also be true for the window title, but that might need more testing. Also, for the tiny window with empty title solution, I don't think we should use that solution either, since users may for some reason actually have applications that launch with very small windows. I say detecting the splash window isn't going to be too hard. What we're really going to have to think through is detecting like these like initial windows that have to be clicked through to then go to the splash window that then brings up the main window. It's a little bit more tricky. Okay. The splash window had a class digicam, and it also had a title, collection not found. Both fully populated. The intermediate window also had class and title digicam before it degraded, so the windows that actually caused the problem, the ones that get falsely detected as the real window, always had valid class and title. The only windows with empty properties were the brief destruction artifacts with empty everything, and another one going empty right as it died, which appears momentarily during window teardown and wouldn't typically be caught by the retry loop anyways, since they exist for maybe one polling cycle. So criteria 2 and 3 don't actually solve the splash window problem at all. They'd only catch destruction artifacts and helper widgets, which are edge cases rather than core issue. Well, I mean, we are addressing edge cases, so we probably could keep that logic in there. Like, yeah, it does. If it doesn't have a class or a title, then it's just detected a window that probably popped up and destroyed very quickly. That leaves only the block listed class check. Okay, we can keep the check for empty class and for empty title, since doing so is just extra validation and shouldn't cause issues elsewhere. Okay. Yeah, so we're just going to remove the third step. We'll keep the empty class and empty title check. And we'll probably need to start a new session here soon. This one isn't too deep. We can probably keep it going for a second. There's some tool failures. Not sure why we're having tool failures. Let me try a new chat real fast and just make sure we don't have some issues going on here. Can you create a test file at home shared projects kdoitall using the desktop commander MCP? this is just to test that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I did create a test file. Good deal, good deal. So, might just be an issue with that session, or let's go back to it for a second. We'll do a little reload. We'll give it the plan file just to make sure. Give it the path for the plan file. Desktop commander MCP to edit the file. Yeah, just a little hiccup, so that's all good. Okay, now we're gonna have to do some thinking here. So let's go back to our plan file for a second. So the phase one was the dialog window, and then the dialog window got exited whenever it was accepted, and then the splash window appeared, and then the final window appeared. So detecting between the dialog window and the final window is basically impossible. There's nothing really we can do there because that's still a permanent window until the user goes in and checks for it and, you know, accepts or declines whatever they need to do. So even detecting that it's a dialog window and not the final window is basically a lost cause. What we really need to be able to do let's think here for a second about what options we have. Because we could go through the whole launch process and we could just leave it as the dialog window and that would be fine. Wouldn't be a big deal. But the issue would be is when the user finally did go to that window and they clicked through it and then, you know, that window disappeared and then the final window had to appear, then kdoitall would lose the detection for that window. It wouldn't know which window it is anymore because the window that it thought it was doesn't exist anymore. And I mean, we could just query again and look for that same class and find that it's, you know, like, oh, okay, the digicam, there's still a window with digicam class. That's probably it. But then we get into issues with multi-instances where, you know, what if they had already launched another digicam window? You know, they had multiple instances, and then it'd be like, well, which one is it? So we want to have like minimal user interaction for this, because I mean we could do something like, well, after the user goes through the dialog box, then they should know to go back to kdoitall and refresh it and redetect the window. But we're trying to veer away from things like that. This is just it's a little tricky here. I mean, we could do something like Stiggy Main. What's going on, bro? Just going through some headaches over here. See, I finally got the chat up here. So, just so I can make you famous too. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I mean, if there's just a single window, syncing music to your DAP. I should probably know what a DAP is. A doll. I don't know what DAP stands for. If there's just a single instance of the window, then we can just detect that single instance. A digital audio player? Okay. I was like, I know what a DAW is. Yeah. What kind of a digital audio player do you use? You syncing from like your phone to your computer? Location. We'll work through this with Claude for a second. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. Little cassette tape. Felt cassette tapes were like hardly around at all. Like we had like vinyl, and we went cassette tapes, and then we like immediately went CDs. And CDs are pretty popular for a while, but I don't know if I ever had a real cassette tape. I don't think I ever had a cassette tape. I was around when cassette tapes were like, I was probably like growing up when CDs were just becoming popular, because I remember going to parties and seeing people with like full books of just like hundreds of CDs. Oh yeah, I'm sure you can still find them around. What kind of cassette tapes are you? I mean, do you have cassettes, or you just like the aesthetic of it? Is that so? A lot of artists will offer cassettes on Bandcamp. I don't know why. I thought Bandcamp had like shut down for some reason. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Maybe I think I'm thinking of DatPiff is what I'm thinking of. Well, that's fair then. You're saying cassettes store a lot of music? I don't think they store that much music. Like, how many tracks can you fit on a cassette? I've never even really thought about it. Are you? Is that like a modern day cassette, or like you're saying like cassettes from back in the day could hold 2 terabytes? There's no way. I don't believe that. So don't they have like? Isn't it like there's like tape, like the? I mean, not actual tape, but like, it spins like a tape, and that's what the audio is actually recorded on. Yeah. Are you saying like a digital cassette? 'Cause I can see something like that. Oh, you're digital. Oh, I gotcha. It's like a portable digital audio player. Yeah, mostly just like I like download. I have like YouTube Music. That's the main thing I use, and I can download music on there because when I'm at work, I don't get good service, so I can just play it from there. I have like the YouTube subscription. I used to keep a buttload of MP3s when I was DJing back in the day, but I keep it more simple now. I haven't had an MP3 player since like high school though. Self-hosting it, yeah, yeah. I've been interested in that and wanting to make my own self-hosting server where I can just put whatever media I want to on there. And so does your so do you have like a portable digital audio player, and then you have your self-hosting that you like have like a server at home, and if those connect, no, you said that has like 2 terabytes, so you just put the audio, your songs right on the digital audio player, if I'm reading it right. When a dialog window pops up and requires user input, and then the dialog window disappears and the final window pops up, we don't have. Yeah, I gotta reduce some of that. Oh, you have all your music on the streaming server? Yeah, that's fair. You have to charge your digital audio player, or is it something you just like plug into like a radio or something else? Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Oh yeah. Does it have like a headphone jack to it as well, or can you connect like Bluetooth to it? Oh yeah, that's efficient. Dang, that is pretty good. Yeah, you could fit 2 terabytes. Like I don't even know how much music you fit on there. I mean, you could fit like hundreds of hours of like movies on there, probably. Well, maybe not hundreds, but I think you could probably fit more songs than you know about. Let's see. I would say 100 gigabytes is probably maybe like 3,000 songs. Probably no, it's probably more than that. It's probably like 5,000 songs. I don't know. You can fit a lot of MP3s. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, at one point when I was DJing, I'd got up to like 15 to 20,000 songs. I think I was still sitting at under like 200 gigabytes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I just kind of cycle through music now, so it's kind of easier for me to just use like a streaming platform. Also watch a bunch of YouTube, and so I can just download YouTube videos. So it lets me watch it through the YouTube app. So I'm just always doing that usually. Raw FLAC, yeah, that's like the best media type there is. Mm. 300 terabytes. What's Anna's archive? Haven't heard of that either. One second, I gotta let my cat out. 300 terabytes. My God. Yeah. Just happens to. It just happens to kind of have every single song that Spotify has. Not really telling where it comes from, just happenstance. Yeah, I've done stuff similar like that back in the day. Kind of sits on the line of being legal, but I think it is still technically legal if you're just using it for like personal use, though. Like as long as you're not like if you can like I think legally download Spotify music if you can find a way to do it, and as long as you're not like throwing parties and playing that music and making money from it, if you're just for personal use, I think that's actually illegal. That's probably pretty valuable. Hosting Wikipedia before AI took over and probably started adding a bunch of AI slop to Wikipedia. I hope that's not the case. I haven't really heard. I heard that Wikipedia had a lot of issues with just AI queries and AI constantly looking at Wikipedia and just like costing them a lot of extra money and not actually visiting their website. So I didn't know if AI was actually updating Wikipedia. That would be scary. Dang. 110 gigabytes. I mean, I guess with it all being text and I guess some images, they don't really have videos on Wikipedia. So yeah, strip the media. I guess there's some audio files, maybe. Are there audio files on Wikipedia? I feel like it's just images. Images and text. Which images can add up. So yeah, that makes sense. But still, 12 gigabytes for just the text, like, it's kind of surprising. Oh, like, I guess that makes sense. I didn't know they would come with Wikipedia. Is that like audio? I wonder if those are like auto generated or if people actually create audio files for that. I've never tried to hear like a text to speech for a Wikipedia page. That's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. That would make sense though. Wikipedia is very accessible. They try to be accessible for everyone. So I wonder if that download includes Wikipedia pages in like each language, or if that's like that's just something that the website handles. Hmm. Oh boy. Sorry, I still gotta let up on some of my restrictions. Could probably change that now. I'll have to do that when I end stream. Yeah, I'm gonna let up some of my restrictions when I end stream. I'll start trying to allow links again. I don't know if I can do that now or not. Let me switch over here. Creator dashboard. Moderation settings. Verification. Okay. Let's let this up some. We'll go about halfway for the auto mod instead. And see if I can allow links again. I don't see where the links are at. Might have to find that later. Okay. Might have fixed something. Let me see. No. I don't know if you're trying to post a link or something, but I let up on some of the auto mod. I didn't turn it off completely yet, but discrimination. Might be in advanced settings. I don't know. I don't see where the. So I blocked links from being allowed, but I don't see where I did that now. Oh, block hyperlinks. There we go. That's a little better. I don't know what you're trying to type, but it must be pretty harassing. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Let me go here. Control Shift T. Well, no. It's because I'm on a different computer. That would make sense. Oh, whenever you download it, you select the language. 30 languages, that's pretty impressive. It's like, whenever you download it, I guess you're downloading it from today. I wonder if it lets you actually pick if you can download past versions of Wikipedia. Press files. It seems like a pretty valuable thing to have. Just Wikipedia as like a downloadable. You could do a lot of stuff with that. Especially like querying for information. It's probably pretty useful. But I would want like an updated version. Like I'd want it to always be like up to date. So I don't know if I'd have to just keep re-downloading it. Like I feel like this could work like a Git repo, you know, where you could just have like a new version every day. You could easily go back and forth. Wow. That's pretty impressive. What do they say about database schema? That is pretty cool. If it's not that big, then doing parity checks. Yeah, I could actually see me using something like that. I would want to like download this. I mean, because I think Wikipedia tries to block AI from querying it, and so like overloading its server and whatnot. But you can just download the entire Wikipedia archive, then you can probably make a tool or something just to tell the AI just to query your download instead of actually going to the website. Which, I mean, all of Wikipedia is basically already in the training data, so for AI, but I don't know what a parity check is. I'm gonna grab a little bit of coffee. Man. Oh, okay. That's cool. Oops. Oh, that's what I do with local. 5800. Oh, okay. I'm missing here. Oh. Is that just for all your data, or that's for just the Wikipedia? Numerical values. Oh, that's pretty interesting. That's something I need to look into. Reliable data storage for multiple general purpose computer hard disk drives. Distributed parity. Dual parity. Multiple RAID levels can also be combined or nested. RAID 1. RAID levels and their associative data formats are standardized. So that's just like different levels of storage for different RAIDs, and some are more reliable than others. Yeah, that's pretty necessary for HDDs, especially if you're trying to. Yeah, I think the lifespan on those is like 10 years, which, I mean, for data, for your personal data, like you don't just want to have it for 10 years. You definitely don't just want certain pieces rotting away without you knowing. Huh. So if you have like a 2 terabyte drive. Well, let's say if you had like 500 gigabytes of like personal data, like how much would you need, like an extra partition or like extra data to use for the RAID, to like, because it seems like it's almost like mirroring your data, which I'm not sure if I would totally need that, because I do have cloud storage. Like all my stuff is backed up to the cloud, and most cloud services already keep like multiple copies of your information. But I guess I guess this would still be good, just because my HDD would slowly corrupt over time, and just you would just want to know that know when that's happening. Yeah. Okay. Block level striping with distributive parity. Unlike in RAID 4, parity information is distributed among the drives. It requires that all drives but one be present to operate. Upon failure of a single drive, subsequent reads can be calculated from the distributed parity such that no data is lost. RAID 5 requires at least 3 disks. So you have like your internal HDD, or I don't know if you have an internal HDD or SD, but then so you have like 3 external HDD drives to ensure that your data isn't corrupting over time. And those are all like the same size as your internal. You have 4. Oh, in your server. Yeah, that makes sense then. That's pretty smart. Yeah, I definitely need to look into setting up a private server more. 16 gigabytes, total 12 terabytes usable. So like the full parity is only taking up 16 gigabytes total. And it's like is that on each drive, or that's spread out among each one? Oh, 16 terabytes. Okay. Okay. So you have like 4 terabyte drives. Yeah. I have a 2 terabyte backup drive HDD, and then I have like a 5. I think it's a 5 terabyte, which I haven't really used much of that 5 terabyte yet. It's just kind of for, I have like large videos or whatever. 3, 4 terabytes and a 6 terabyte. Okay. Yeah, that is very smart. Because ever since I started getting into Linux, I've been much more worried about my backups because I went through a whole ordeal where I lost like all my data. Like I used to be on Microsoft and like I had backed up, or I thought I had my stuff backed up to OneDrive, and ended up having a external drive break, and I couldn't access the information on it, and so I was like, okay, oh gosh, that sucks. So I went to my OneDrive, and somehow the data was not kept up on there either. It just like disappeared, and I just completely lost like a whole bunch of personal information. When I used to like, I did audio engineering for a while, and used to like make some of my own music and did a lot of DJing and stuff like that, and so I had lost like all my sessions from back in the day, from like recording artists and stuff like that, and even one of the artists is now like passed away, so it's like I lost stuff from him too, and so it's like I lost like all my personal notes and stuff like that, and I was just like super bummed. And so once I switched over to Linux, I was like, man, I'm gonna have like multiple backup methods and keep everything backed up now. But yeah, over the long term, I definitely need to look into this for sure, because HDDs do have a limited lifespan, and you want to make sure that data isn't getting corrupted. And just, right now I have things backed up on multiple locations, but that's not actually protecting against the data corrupting necessarily. Yeah, I'll look more into these for sure. I don't know if I'll try to set up something like this before I get my own server going. But yeah, that's pretty cool. This one, what's RAID 1? An exact copy or mirror of a set of data on 2 or more disks. See, like I basically already have this. I don't know, because I have my backup drive, and then I use a Restic for like my personal files and Timeshift for my system files. But those are kind of like kind of locked away. What the heck is that? In like repos, like there's a Restic repo, and Timeshift has like its own snapshot. So I mean, it's a mirror, but I don't know how easily files could be compared. I might have to have something different for that. Useful and read performance or reliability is more important than write performance or resulting data storage capacity. Continue to operate so long as at least one member drive is operational. I could probably set up something like that. For at least like a terabyte of data, because I'd say all my personal data is well under a terabyte right now, so I don't know. I'll look into that. That's good to know. Oh, wow. 2002. Hell yeah. Okay. They must be clean. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I probably would want to get my own server going, just so I can hook up the drives into that instead of having to run them out of my PC. Because I have a laptop, and I have a limited amount of USB inputs, even though I do have a USB extender. But yeah, I would want to get a private server for that. Not looking to get in a Raspberry. I wonder how much those run. Is that what you have as a Raspberry or something like that? Dang. 10.9 terabytes. I think if I had all the information, because I've had so many different computers and I've lost information so many times. I don't even like to think about it. But I think all my information, if I still had it, would probably still be like under a terabyte. Right now it's only a couple hundred gigabytes, but dang. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. I can dig that. Yeah, that's something I'll definitely try to work on sometime this year. Whenever I get some little bit of spare cash and a little bit of spare time. Nice. Nice. What'd you say? You run on a Cache OS? Is that right? Or did you say something else? Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah, I feel more confident in checking out Arch now. I've been on Linux for about a year. Definitely wouldn't have started there. I think starting with Fedora was a really good starting point. I could see me checking out Arch or other similar distros. Hell yeah. Oh yeah. Have you used it? When's the last time you used Fedora? The mount drive's weird. Yeah. Yeah. My first year of dealing with Fedora, I had a lot of issues with mounting drives. I kept trying to set up auto mounts and stuff like that, and it had a lot of issues where it would auto mount some of the times, which I have like Luke's encrypted drives, so I would have to unlock it through password and whatnot. But then I would try to like disconnect it, and it would never disconnect because something was hanging on to it from the auto mount, basically. 20 minutes ago. Yeah, but I've got it set up really well now. I don't know. I can't really show it on this user. But on my main user, I have like everything set up where I can just run like OS backup, and it'll prompt me for like one password, and then it'll unlock the drives, and it can run my backups and stuff like that, and then it automatically locks the drives back. It's like a private project. I think it's got like some personal information in it, so that's why I have it on my main user. But yeah, my first iteration of working with it, I failed miserably, and then dealt with that for like a year, and then finally I was like, okay, now I understand Fedora a little bit better, and I tried it again, and it's reliable now. Like I could go into the GUI and connect pretty easily, or unmount and whatnot and disconnect, but I don't ever even have to do that because I have it set up as a command now where I can just unlock and lock it. So yeah, yeah, I have dual boot. I still have my Windows because I still do some gaming on Windows, um, and also something I haven't figured out yet. So every time I go to Windows, I just turn secure boot back on, and then if I go back to Fedora, then I'll just turn it off. It's probably a bit of a workaround right now, but yeah, I haven't fully figured that out yet. I think it's mostly just the network that needs to be signed because I can sign into Fedora with secure boot on, but I don't think the network will connect. So no, I don't know. I might be able to. Let me go here for a second. Yeah, so yeah, I think I can access this. I just have like OS backup status, and then I've got like my list of drives. Got my backup drive, my extended drive, and then my cloud drive. I use K drive for the cloud, and then I can just do something like a OS. What is it? OS backup drive connect or open. I think is it. Okay. Oh, okay. OS backup open backup drive. Yeah, it takes a little second, but yep, yep. So it opened it up, and so then I could just cd. Well, that's actually not it. I think it's backup drive. Maybe that's not it either. But yeah, that did open it up. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm not gonna jump in there, but yeah, that unlocks the drive, and then I can just OS backup, close backup drive. Whoa. I didn't even know I had that set up. Yeah, it's a lot simpler than me having to go in and mess with it. Or I definitely don't deal with auto mount anymore. That was like the biggest headache. But one second. Oh, this edge case is such a headache. Yeah, I could imagine. Uh, mm, man. Except the first window. I just don't have a good solution for this. I guess I have to make an extra piece of metadata for applications so that we can track which applications have potential dialog boxes to start with, and then if they do, then I don't know, it just gets irritating because I mean, if there's just a single instance of something, and then the dialog disappears, and then the actual window pops up, then you can just query for the class and find that window again. But if you have like multiple instances, then that just makes things difficult. I don't know. Like the hardest part is like I can make kdoitall work pretty easily if someone just uses kdoitall. Then I could be like, okay, I can keep track of what windows people have, but I'm trying to make it where for like times that they don't use kdoitall, if they just go in and just open an application without going through kdoitall, that it can handle that stuff and it can kind of detect stuff like that and still work right. But this is kind of one of those cases where it's like if you had kdoitall try to launch digicam, and then it opened up this dialog box, and then it took them a while to even go through the dialog box, and then I don't know, they decided to launch another digicam 2, or they ended up exiting out of it and not using kdoitall to exit it, and it just makes a weird state that's hard to keep up with. I don't know. Oh yeah. All right. Yeah, I appreciate you hanging out. Yep. Also, thanks for telling me about that RAID thing. I'm gonna definitely look into that some more. That's a pretty necessary thing if you want to keep your data safe. So, thanks for that. Hell yeah. Local network, kill switch, and VPN. Yep, that's what I have. That's what I have running too. Got Proton running, so. Well, not a backup. It's just kind of like a, yeah, not a, just a way to keep your data. I don't know if safe is the right word, but not corrupted. Yeah, yeah, no, I already have my backup methods with time shift and Restic that I would keep. I would just kind of add that on. Yeah, fault tolerant system. Yeah, just what keeps your data from being corrupted. It's like I already have a method to keep my data from being lost. Now I just need to add a method to stop it from being corrupted. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for telling me about that though. Yes, I think dealing with what dialog boxes, I'm gonna have to think more long term about that. We can go ahead and address the splash windows though. That's something I can pretty easily address. Let me go through the rest of this dialog box real fast. Just the raw, do nothing. Okay. Let's close that. Okay. So let's go. Yeah, we'll address that later, but we're gonna go and address the splash windows. Let's go to our plan. Splash windows is pretty simple, because all we're really doing is just we'll query for something, and then in the safe mode launch detection, we'll just wait a second or two and see if that window disappeared or not. And then if it disappeared, then we'll wait for the next window to pop up. Yep, that should be pretty good. Okay, safe mode, splash window detection. Yep, this is what we're looking for. So the current flow is whenever you launch an application that needs metadata gathered, then it's gonna ask the user to go in safe mode first. And so we'll do the auto detect windows, which gives a snapshot of your current windows. Why are we doing big mouse? Why are we doing big mouse? Go away, big mouse. Then it's going to launch the application using GTK launch, and then it's going to get the UUID by process of elimination. It's going to minimize the window. Is that what happens? Yeah, I guess it is. Okay. And then it's going to, gosh. I must not usually talk this much because I lose my voice pretty fast now. Okay. So the problem is that we return the first UUID, which is potentially just the splash window, not the final application. So our proposed solution is, after detecting the first UUID, add a stability verification phase that monitors whether the UUID survives for a stabilization period. If it disappears, rescan for its replacement. The new flow is going to be, we'll record the initial launch time, do the stability check, wait for stable window, check if the UUID still exists, if it exists with a valid class title. If stability counter reaches threshold, if you man, I swear, my voice was feeling fine like over the weekend, and then I literally like, I don't know if it was yesterday that my voice started hurting again, or if it was this morning, but it's like the days I'm not streaming, my voice feels fine. It's not even, it's like before I even started streaming today, my voice was already hurting. But we're gonna make it through it. We got about 1 more hour, and then I've got to do some work off stream, so. If UUID disappears, set the splash detected to true. Rerun. If no new UUID is found, if splash detected, okay. Okay. Execute launch. Okay. I think we can start going through this. We have a splash window handling. Excuse me. Yep, we're going to start moving through this then. Let's grab our plan file. We just post the file path. And all we got to do is say, let's start working on this plan. Oh, sorry, I missed a YouTube chat. Sorry, I have my Twitch set up now to show, but I don't have YouTube set up that well. I gotta set up my second display better. Sorry if I missed that. When did he say that? I like how it doesn't show me the time. That's fine. Sorry about that. I guess I can fix that now, though. I'll have to set up like a single interface where I can keep YouTube chat and Twitch chat easily. So I can easily see both of them. Some stuff I'll work on off stream. So we don't run into that issue again. Okay. Sorry. Gotta make sure I don't miss any chats. Okay. Let's go over the implementation plan for part 1. This is pretty simple. We're just going to add in transient window filtering so we ignore notification windows and stuff like that. Array after the existing launch mode constants. Okay. Then we'll add the transient array filtering to some functions. Ensures. Okay. Proceed with updates. Gonna take this one step at a time, and this should resolve the issues with splash windows. This is a pretty straightforward plan. Oh, hope everyone's having a good day today. Thanks for hanging out. If y'all are using AI, make sure to tell me, what kind of models y'all like to use. What kind of experience you've had with AI. With these LLMs, I've been using LLMs for years now. I really I started learning about coding when ChatGPT was just first getting popular, which this was probably 3 years ago at this point. About 3 years ago. And back then it was fairly simple. Like, I was not doing things this complex. I was not having ChatGPT, had access to my file system, was reading through all kinds of files. Like, no, I was just like copying and pasting like segments of code and having it incrementally help me with things. And over the years, I've just had a bunch of different experiences with AI. Sometimes being more involved and less involved, and having the AI do more work and less work. And I feel like I'm at a pretty balanced point right now. I would say where I'm at now, I would like to be a little bit more involved, but that's just more so I'm learning everything. Right now we're working in Bash, and I spent a lot of time, probably like a week or so, when I first started this project, learning about Bash and actually hand coding a lot of things. And so I know what's going on in the code base. I can, I'm like fully in charge of like the directory structure and the project structure and everything, and the architecture we're going for and the tools we're using. Like, I spent a lot of time deciding those things, and got a lot of the foundation for this project built out. And once the foundation was built, it's been pretty easy to put off a lot of work on the AI. And I'm still here going through the plan each time and making sure each implementation is correct. Okay. So we added a variable to the common file. We added the function to the window file. Okay. And we added a sync comment above the SQL, not in clause referencing. Okay. Let me look at it didn't mention that in the plan. Adding a sync comment. Let me just look at that. Okay, it's just, yeah, that literally just put a comment in there. Okay, that's fine. Let's continue. Yeah, I think for a few months I'd kind of gotten lost in the sauce where I was making projects and was barely looking at the code base when, that was after, about a year or two of me learning to code. But when I began to learn how to code, that was all in VBA. I wasn't really aware of much outside of VBA, which is what I was working on for like an Excel project. And I got very familiar with that, and that's, like I say, when ChatGPT was just first getting popular. So you couldn't offload all your work onto it. And it wasn't the most reliable thing, but it was helpful in learning. But, I ended up, using ChatGPT a lot, and then basically got to the point where I stopped using ChatGPT because I was just so fluent in VBA. And then did that for a while, and then finally had the confidence to move away from VBA and kind of open myself up to the larger world of programming languages, and got into Python and HTML and JavaScript and CSS and SQL and stuff along that lines. Moved over to Linux and started getting familiar with all that stuff, and it was definitely overwhelming at first, just because I kind of put a lot on my plate at first, where I moved over to Linux and also tried to start learning all these other languages like Python and new databases, front end, back end, all that stuff at once. And so I was like offloading. I had AI doing a lot of things for me. I was trying to learn Python, and so I would offload most of the front end for web applications I was trying to make, and have the AI do stuff like that. But it was definitely getting a lot better. Then that's when I think that was around like the Sonnet 3.5 days, and it was pretty good. But once things got more complex, then it would end up just running in circles, and I wasn't aware enough of what was going on to really be able to step in and help it get out of these like recurring loops of just trying to resolve an error, making a new error, trying to resolve an error, and just never actually solving the issue. So let's look at phase 2 real fast. Okay, we're going to add a column to the applications table. That's a good idea. We'll also add a column to the app registry table, which the app registry seeds the applications table. We'll add some database functions. Pretty simple stuff. Okay. For call sites, need the read statement updated to capture the new fifth field. In the core, in the functions. Okay. Okay. Yep. I've noticed once you kind of get the design patterns down, though, and you get a good foundation for a project, it is definitely a lot faster to offload work onto an AI. Especially when what's being added is reliable. I feel like I have a pretty good grounding right now of what kind of work I can offload onto Claude and what stuff I need to be more involved in. But I'm never just telling it a problem and being like, all right, go in there and solve this. It's like we're spending some time figuring out what solutions we might have, and if the update is going to be big enough, then we'll make a whole plan file for it. If it's not, if we're just doing like little changes, then I probably won't make a plan file for stuff like that. We just kind of work through it in a single session, but yeah, and I would say the way things have been working best for me now is just um, I think the design patterns that are already in the code base help out more than any prompting or any documents I give to Claude outside of the code base. So it's like I'm not really making skill files for Claude to read before it starts working on the project. I'm not, having it read all this documentation or overviews about the project, because whenever it's reading files to figure out what it wants to edit, it's getting a good idea of the design patterns that are already laid out, which are strong design patterns. And it keeps it pretty trained in. And it also has a memory, like each of this project has its own memory, which I guess haven't actually looked at in a minute. But it kind of updates its memory over time. And, that's also something that's pretty helpful. Things that get repeated a lot, it ends up just putting it in its own memory. Which I do want to look at that because I haven't looked at the actual memory yet. Like I have instructions set up for Claude for this project, but most of that's just telling it some of the main files it can look at, and just some short instructions about how to use Bash and how I want to what kind of workflow I want when going through sessions. Which is just that I don't ever want Claude to just immediately start editing files. I always wanted to tell me a plan first and then let me verify. I think that's kind of what distinguishes between AI assisted and just vibe coding. Vibe coding does kind of worry me quite a bit for people that are getting into software development and, don't ever really look at the code. They get AI to make them something, and they're like, "Wow, this is responsive. This works." Job well done. And I would say 9 times out of 10, probably not job well done. Just because you make something that is interactive, especially if you're making it for people to actually use, then you want to be aware of security vulnerabilities and edge cases just to make sure it's actually something people can use reliably. Oh. Okay. Let me look at one thing. Okay. So we added our column into the two tables, and then made our database functions and updated the functions that pull from the database. So let's continue. Oh. Okay. So now we're going to implement this new check into the safe mode process, the safe mode launch process. How many seconds is that? Okay. Okay, this is just going to add the splash window detection to our safe mode launch process. Ooh. Still trying to think a bit about how I want to deal with the dialog boxes, because I feel like that's going to be actually the hardest edge case to handle without us like really messing up the user workflow for this and adding in steps I don't want to add in. I've been thinking some about making like a daemon for kdoitall that can query in the background and can kind of keep track of active windows, where right now, the active windows are just being queried whenever a command runs for kdoitall. It just kind of detects like, okay, what's the current state of the windows, and then it can try to launch something and then detect what changed. But it would be more useful if we had like a daemon running in the background that can query the active windows like every few seconds or something like that. I don't want it to be too process heavy, but that'd be a pretty big addition. And so I just want to think about that some more. If something like that would be necessary. But dialog windows are definitely very annoying. It's like we can launch an application and then we can determine which window owns that application pretty easily. But if it's just a dialog window, and then the user has to go in and then, require some user input, and then the dialog window actually disappears, and then a new window pops up with the actual final window for the application, then it's like that, there's no command being ran in that time. So it's like, unless I have something that's actually querying the active windows, then it's really hard to detect something like that. Okay, let's look at this, see what we changed. Okay, we added our function. So I think we can test that out, actually. Let's go back to our first window. We'll do a clear. First, let's look at the info for Digicam, kdoitall, app info, Digicam. So the app name is not set, but we have detected the window class. Okay. Title pattern also not detected. Safe mode not completed. Launch mode unknown. We do need to add, I don't know if that's part of the plan, but we do need to add that extra column into the window info, which I don't think is in there. Yeah, that's not in there. I think we can sidestep into that real fast. Let's do go ahead and update the kdoitall app info display to also include the splash window. That should just be, probably change one database function and then update the display function. Should be all we really need to do for that. So that's something that's kind of useful for our testing. So, and we need to know that the safe mode detection works well before we actually implement into the main core function. You can see it didn't fully follow the instructions because it was supposed to just tell me the plan and then make the updates, but it was a small update, so I'm not too worried about that. But we should be able to go here now, and we'll see our splash window, which that's just a binary, true or false. I don't know if we need, maybe it doesn't need to be a binary because, I mean, there's true, false, or unknown. It's usually kind of better to know if it's unknown or not. Yeah, we might need to change that from a binary to a string or something. Yeah, usually binaries are kind of limited. We don't yet know what this. Yeah, so we're gonna change it from just being yes or no to yes, no, or unknown. Hopefully it just gives me the plan here. This should, so I think for this we will update the schema. Okay, change default false to default null. So, okay, so this, okay, so we can still accept a binary. It just also will accept a null value. Okay, that, yeah. Yeah, we'll set it to null as default. Okay. So let's go back here again, try our info. Okay, splash window unknown. That is more consistent. Now we can test it out. Let's do a clear. And let's do a kdoitall workspace open test 3. Should prompt for safe mode. Oh, it did not prompt for safe mode. Well, I skipped it earlier, but skipping safe mode is not supposed to actually turn off the safe mode prompting. And if we go back to this command again, and we see, well, it's not showing. Why is it not showing? Maybe I shouldn't have cleared that. I thought it was showing it before. Last validated, never. Did we just mess something up? Let's try a different application. App info, Google Chrome. Well, let's see. Control P. Now we're looking for window info, or I don't know. I think this is just in display. And now window info. or let's do a Control K, Control O. Display application info. Oh crap. So for safe mode, how do we show that? If there is not a safe mode completed, I think it should show. Yeah, I think we just have an issue where it doesn't show if safe mode has been completed or not if it hasn't. I don't know. Let's see. Let's look at the text editor real fast. I think. So let's try kdoitall workspace open test 1. And we're going to accept the safe mode launch. Okay. Accept. I think we had a database failure, it looks like. No rows updated for app ID. No such column has splash window. Okay, that's just because I haven't reset the database yet, so that's fair. Yeah, I should have done that first. Let's do a dev reset then. Let's go scripts dev reset. Oh, my bad. CD home shared projects. Okay, do it all. Scripts dev reset. I need to reset the scripts too. Let's clear that. Okay. So let's start like this. kdoitall app info text editor. Oh wait, I gotta do an app scan. We'll get this right one of these days. Let's go. Should just take a second. It's gonna scan the system for your applications to gather a list. Okay, we got our applications. Now let's do a kdoitall app info text editor. Okay, let's do a kdoitall app list, and I can actually do. Should just be able to do. Throw it in parentheses. Text editor. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that was just an issue with the database. But we're seeing safe mode not completed now. So that's good. Okay. So now let's go. kdoitall workspace create test 1. And we're going to do our digicam, since that's an application that launches with a splash window. We'll do a default window name. Go desktop, virtual desktop 1. Yeah, we can launch it on the display for stream, and we will do. We'll do right half just so it does something to it. We're just gonna do one application for testing, and yeah, we'll focus that as well. Let's create. Now, whenever we do kdoitall workspace open test 1, it should prompt for safe mode, and we will accept the safe mode launch. So ooh, we got a lot going on here. Give it one more second because I'm sure something there messed up. Ooh, some of these applications just need to chill out. Okay, let's go back and see what happened. So, an issue that happened there is that it went to the multi-instance test before it actually finished testing the stability. And I think I need to, I don't know, see if my logs are working right now. Should be. Today is the 3rd. I have too many logs. I need to delete some of these. Oh boy. Man, it's a lot for just a little safe mode launch. Oh. Found 5 new windows. We should have found 5 new windows. That seems a bit excessive. I feel like something else must have messed up for that to happen. Wow. Huh. Let's slide up here. Found 4 new windows, expected 1. Okay, no UUID, found UUID. And then it's monitoring for stability. Auto select. Okay. So oh crap. So we have our single digicam detected there. And then it gets added to the database. Okay. I'm not totally sure what happened here. Okay, let's get Claude to look through that. See what it can see. So there's actually 2 windows right now. Okay. Some of these applications just need to take a chill pill. I think that splash windows, like, it's got multiple dialog windows. I'm telling you, man. What's the other one? Let's see. Oh. It's not even letting me go to it. Oh, yeah. I can't even test the splash window because other stuff doesn't work. And I've already skipped this earlier, so it's like it's gonna prompt this every time. I don't know. I don't want to download all that. Is that another one? What is even happening here? Wow. Oh, that was the multi-instance. That's why there were so many windows, because it launched one with a dialogue and then launched a second with a dialogue. Oh boy. We got a lot going on here. Okay. Yeah, that's another edge case we need to be aware of. Is if it launches more than one window. But let's deal with one edge case at a time. Digicam's just got too much going on. If I can deal with this single application, I can probably deal with everyone in the world. Okay. Let's do a skip. I guess we're just downloading this then. So we can skip this dialogue. Sorry, let's let this go real fast. So I can deal with one edge case at a time. That would be great. Oh man. Yeah, I have a lot of fun adding in features for kdoitall, and I think that's what I got caught up on for a bit. But now, now we're at the part where we just got to start really getting in the weeds and addressing all of these edge cases. So, but this is the important part. This is what we gotta push through. Okay. So let's do our app info and make sure info didn't get messed up. It should be safe mode still not completed, so that's good. Let's do a clear, and let's do a workspace open test 1. Dang it. That's a bug. Yeah, I should have prompted for safe mode, because it still says safe mode not complete, so I don't. Yeah, I think it must have looked at the last validated, because yeah. Let's go into a new session to address that real fast. Let's grab our log, and then we'll also get the script. I do not need these logs. Let's make that a little bit easier to deal with. And I was just looking at the script, so I think I can Control P test 1. Okay. Give us some information. Okay. I attempted to launch this workspace, which contains the application digicam. This workspace in safe mode. Safe mode process failed and did not gather the correct metadata, so I skipped the confirmation. For some reason, when I attempted to launch the application, the workspace again, it did not prompt for safe mode. Even though the safe mode was still not completed. And we can do, let's do one more little test. Let's just do a kdoitall workspace create test 2. We'll do our text editor 105. Is that right? Yep, 105. Default window name, virtual desktop, that, no more applications, 1, and proceed. Okay, and then let's do kdoitall workspace open test 2. It'll prompt for safe mode, and then we're just going to skip it outright. And that doing that should just launch it. Potentially another bug. I don't know why I didn't detect that. It's not much of a reason. That shouldn't have been detected. It's really not any reason at all, but it's all right. Okay, let's try that again and then see if it prompts this time. Well, let's show our info, app info, text editor. Oops. Yeah, for some reason it keeps putting in a last validated when it hasn't been validated yet. Okay, it did prompt again, so that's good. Let's try to accept it. I'm guessing we should have the same issue here. A 30-second timeout just does not seem necessary. I think we have introduced a bug of some sort, because this stuff was working a lot better before. This is very consistent, and it's not working now. I don't want a 30-second timeout. Okay, let's take this one step at a time. We will fix our safe mode issue, and then let's make sure we didn't just introduce some random bug. I don't think, I mean, we're not fully through the plan yet, but I don't think anything we've changed yet would break the process. I could be wrong about that. I think the main issue here was that I don't know. I mean, it should. Let's see what it says, and we'll investigate as it looks as well. Yep. The safe mode triggering logic. I mean, that should be in what is that in? Control P. Or let's go commands. Workspace open. Validate the name parameter. Check if workspace exists in the database. Check if workspace script file exists. Capture the currently active window. Check for safe mode. There it is. Skip if prompting disabled. Yeah, it should just be checking that one column. Okay. The detect safe mode apps query. Coalesce. Problem is that both skip paths inside safe mode launch and detect call. Huh. That's unfortunate. So, yeah, whenever we skip it, it's being set to true. Which I kind of thought we'd already fixed before, but... Raise mark, safe mode completed. Okay, simple change. Probably need to do another workspace reset, another dev reset. Let's do scripts, dev reset. Um, okay. Let's try make our workspace again. May have the same issue that I didn't do an app scan. We will fix at least one edge case today without breaking everything else. I am confident. Okay, create our workspace. Digicam. Should know the number by now. 24. Okay. Let's make our workspace. Confirm it. And let's do a kdoitall workspace. Open, test 1. Safe mode recommended. Accept. Now we can see what happens. Yeah. And that's kind of what we just tried to resolve, but it's just going too fast. I don't know why it's... Let's look at our log. So it said waiting for window to appear. It got the window there, and then it says verifying window stability. Window detected after... Okay, so the issue there is that it's... Okay. Let's make sure I can skip... Exit out. Let me make sure what we just the bug we just fixed works. Make sure it's going to prompt safe mode. Oh my gosh. We're just having a fun time today. Come on, man. App info. Digicam. Oh. This is painful. Seem to be working. We are still launching the application without safe mode prompting, even when safe mode has not been completed. I really shouldn't be doing a last validated either, since it hasn't been validated. Oh. Let's go ahead and do a reset while it's working on this. Oops. So even when it failed that safe mode test, it did add some information to the database. I mean, okay, that last validated is actually not for safe mode. Wait, what? Okay, yeah. That's just, that's actually a different validation that I forgot about. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because we don't prompt safe mode if the class has already been set, because try to limit the amount that safe mode is necessary. And we basically decided that it's not really necessary as long as we have the window class. I kind of want to keep it like that because, I mean, the window class really is the most valuable piece of metadata that we can get. And kdoitall, like, it should operate without the rest of the metadata as long as we at least have the window class. But feeling that's a little bit less true now. Like, as we get into, like, does it have a splash window? I mean, we've already got pretty good logic built in for, you know, does it allow multiple instances or just a single instance? But There's almost like we would almost want to add in a user configuration for this, like, do users want to be prompted for safe mode? You know, if depending on the amount of metadata, like, do they want to be prompted for safe mode more or less, basically? Like, if we have the app class, then they could decide, like, okay, don't do safe mode. But if they don't have the app class, but if they do have the app class and then still don't have some other information, then it could still prompt for it. Something to think about. And the splash windows are one of the harder things to deal with, so let's see what we said here. Yeah, that makes sense why it didn't work then. Remove the and. That's something to think about, because I don't know if I really want to do that or not. I don't know. It really just kind of depends, because right now we're testing safe mode, so it's like I need to be able to test the splash window. But once we get into adding in some logic for the core functionality, if we end up having a strong enough solution for that, then it's not really required here. I almost just want to add a user configuration in for this. Okay. Well, I had determined before that it was okay to skip safe mode as long as the class hasn't been detected. Since that is the most important piece of metadata. However, I think we should add in a user configuration so the user can decide how often they want to be prompted for safe mode. Can have a strict safe mode prompting and a less strict. The less strict will only prompt if the app class has not been determined, and the more strict will prompt. I can spell. For safe mode if the see what ones we really want to focus on here. This is probably more so about, the splash window definitely, and probably the launch mode, because that's still a pretty important piece of metadata. Like I said, the other stuff, like the PID actually isn't being used yet. Our PID validation is actually not used yet anywhere in the code base, but could be useful later. And the title pattern also slightly useful, but not necessary at all. So yeah, okay. And the more strict will prompt for safe mode if either the app class, launch mode, or splash window values have not been determined yet. Okay. It'll also make it a little easier for when I'm trying to do testing. See what kind of plan it gets for this. And this will make it a little bit easier for us to test, because I can just put it in strict mode for prompting. And like I say, kind of as I build out kdoitall, safe mode becomes less and less necessary, and that's kind of the goal. Just kind of limit the amount of user interaction that's necessary for each different application. So, but for now it is necessary, and so we're just going to build this out a little bit. It's really just that kdoitall has to know how to operate, depending on a bunch of factors. You know, like whether it's the first time you're launching an application, then there hasn't been any metadata gathered for that application yet, so it doesn't really know how the application is gonna, what it's gonna do whenever you try to launch it. Okay, let's see this plan real fast. So we're gonna add both levels. We're going to add it to the config file. We need to add it to the install script. We need to add it to the safe mode. Yes. Okay. Okay, cool. Proceed with updates. You know, I think the amount of like back and forth I have to do with Claude, just the amount of troubleshooting and testing and edge case handling is kind of specific to the application that I'm trying to build. You know, if I was just making a web application, then there'd probably be a lot less of this that would be necessary, and I could also be a little bit less involved in the process potentially. You know, definitely with like building up front end. Kitty. Hey. Stop. One second. You know, if you were making a web application, then you would want to be more hands-on with like the security aspect of it, and also just making sure you're following like the legal guidelines for making a web application. You know, it's gonna have like certain accessibility to it. You have to, you know, if you're making a subscription of some sort, you have to make it easy for people to unsubscribe, basically. But for what I'm trying to work on right now, it's just taking a lot more of my input. Okay. Okay. It also makes me think about another potential bug, which is when you install kdoitall, it attempts to make a user config file, but if that user config file already exists, then it just allows it to stay. But this kind of adds an issue where whenever we're updating the user config file and like adding more values to it, then I don't think those values are actually going to get added, because it's just going to skip over, and that kind of makes things a bit more complex. Let's try to address that real fast, just while I'm thinking about it. Okay, we have added a configuration to the user config file. Let's look at the install script and see if the user config file already exists. Does it try to overwrite the user's config file, or does it leave it as is? Yep. This means anyone who installed before this change won't have the comment. That's fine functionally since the code defaults to relax, but it does create a discoverability gap. Seems like we need to add an extra process to the install script to check if the user config file is up to date with the current configuration. If it is not up to date, then it needs to add the new configurations without editing the user's without changing what the file already contains. And that should work. I mean, as long as I don't change a configuration that's already in there, as long as we're just adding on new configurations, and we won't have any issues. Yeah. It's going to define an array of config blocks where each block is a pair, a variable name to detect, and the full comment. Yes. Okay, for each block, it's going to grep the user's config for the variable name, matching both commented and uncommented forms. Yes. If the variable name is not found anywhere in the file, append the block text to the end of the file. Print a summary message if any options were added. Cool. It's pretty simple stuff. Like I said, this is kind of where being AI assisted versus vibe coding comes in handy, because if I was just letting AI do all the work, then I wouldn't even have the time to be thinking through stuff like this. But it's like, as I had thought, like, okay, yeah, we're updating the user config file, and we're updating the install script, even it just happened to lead to me thinking, well, if we're just adding something to the user config file, but I already know that, if the user config file already exists, then we don't override it. So it's just all stuff that, like, me being aware of how this project works leads me to solving these issues, because it's like even when I was creating the user config file, I didn't necessarily think of this, which is it's fair. You can't think through every single edge case. Whenever you create something necessarily, you can't always expect that. Thinking through every possible situation is something that you have to have time to do. And, that's whenever we're using AI, that's something that we're losing, where it's like we can work through things so fast and we can get the AI to do so much work that like we aren't able to think through what's going on. We aren't able to see what's going on. And that's why I kind of like slow the process down a bit. I always have it show me plans before it makes implementations, because not only do I get to verify what it wants to do, but it also just gives my brain time to like think through what's going on. I can think through that module, that process, and I can an edge case might just pop into my brain, and I can address it right then. Which something like this, if I was to go personally add it in, it would take me like 30 minutes at least to think up how that should operate and doing the grep correctly and stuff like that. But I mean, we can go in and see what it just added in. We'll control install. It may have made an issue there. Expressions don't expand in single quotes. Use double quotes for that. I mean, this is just a comment, so I think that's not an actual error. Yeah. But just so it added in all this stuff. So it added in our extra configuration right here. And then up here is, so it basically takes it in blocks and compares and sees if the block already exists or not. Config blocks. Desktop file locations. Safe mode prompting. Yeah. Okay. A little bit of a diversion, but it's a pretty good fix. I think I can actually test that out now. So we can look at our user config file, which I don't actually know if that's in here yet. I think I need to add that. Let's go file, add folder to workspace. Let's go home, kdoitall, config, kdoitall. Trust it. And we can look at the current configuration. Right, we can see I have two things commented out for my own user configurations, which is just so kdoitall commands, like the debug gets logged to a file, and also control which directory the log goes to. So whenever I run a dev reset, that's not actually changing anything. Whenever I run the install script, it would though, but I kind of need it to work with the dev reset. Okay, I also need this process to work with the dev reset. Okay, yeah, we're just going to make a config utils script to kind of handle this, which I think is a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. You know, also being AI assisted rather than just vibe coding, um, it helps the AI out a lot, I think, because the AI, like you kind of have an idea of how the AI operates, and you can. I would say one of the biggest ways that I help out in that regard is my project structure. I don't really have, um, I don't have Claude just making random files. Sometimes it'll suggest just making a single file for, like the other day I had it suggest making a database file that was just for like a single function, and I was like, you don't need to do that. Like, put that database function in the relevant file, which was like the window info or something like that. And when it's in the future, whenever it's looking for database functions for window related features, then it knows, okay, well, it's either going to be in the window info or the window tracking. you know and it's just keeping a really clean structure helps out a lot. I have all my commands here for kdoitall, and kind of how the commands work, and then I have you have your core functionality, which is this is like the actual core function of kdoitall. It's kind of how everything comes together, and that's pretty easy to find. You just go to core.sh. I have kdoitall deals with like apps. It deals with windows. It deals with screens and workspaces. So when you look at all these directories, you see an app directory. I have an app definitions directory, which is kind of like just another way I deal with apps. And then you have your commands directory, the core directory, database. I keep all database functions in the database directory. I'm only ever calling to functions from here to deal with the database. So anytime I'm adding something to the database or editing something, some way we query the database or update the database, is all right here. We're not scanning through every single file to find every time that we're querying the database. It's all right here, and that keeps it real simple whenever the AI is trying to figure out what to do. It finds things very fast, and it notices pretty quickly the design patterns that are being used because they're consistent design patterns. Anytime it's making a function, you can look in here. Whenever I have like debug set up, and I have so every time a function starts, it does like a debug function enter, and that just kind of helps me in the logs to determine how the process is working and what function it's in or whatever. And then it's using debug log functions. It also like channeling for bash is pretty specific. You have to either channel it to std in or std out or std dir or like std3 or, and so I have like consistent patterns for that. Yeah, and like so there's not a whole lot of instructions that I have to give Claude to actually do this stuff. Most of it is whenever it's reading the files, it gets a very good understanding of how things work. I haven't actually looked through the memory in a minute. That's what I was going to do earlier. So let's see what kind of memory it's been adding in. So we have a pretty good amount of sessions that have gone in here now. I haven't actually looked at the memory since we started this early on. But this is what it's basically determined is important for it to know. CodeMan Ethan is developing kdoitall, a KDE desktop automation tool written in Bash, manages workspaces by launching applications and positioning windows across multiple screens and virtual desktops. The project targets KDE Plasma environments, Wayland or X11, and uses SQLite for state tracking with automatic desktop file detection. Okay, the tool bridges the gap between manual window management and full desktop environment automation, allowing users to define collections of applications with specific screen assignments and window positions that can be opened or closed with single commands. Okay. Let me just kind of scan through this for a second and see what parts I think are important. Yeah, this is good. Key architectural decisions include using a layered structure with XDG compliant directories. Okay. Separating user-facing configurations from internal constraints or constants. Implementing database-driven state management. Okay. And following strict bash scripting standards with comprehensive error handling. Okay. Recent work has focused on talking about recent work. Like I say, some of this could honestly probably be edited out. I don't know if I can edit this. I can. So I might actually go through here and edit some of this later on, just so it also, you know, as it's forming memory over time, it's probably just kind of repeating some things. But let me just kind of get an idea. Window detection requires sophisticated multi-strategy approaches due to unpredictable application behavior. The observe then react pattern works better than trying to predict application launch behavior, especially for applications with unknown launch modes. Performance optimization through batch database operations and consolidating external tool invocations provides significant improvements. Like I said, some of the stuff that it's adding in here is just improvements that we made over time, that it's like, oh, well, this was a better idea than this. So a lot of this stuff could actually be removed out of here. I probably need to go through this just because every bit of context that you give in these sessions is important. And, you know, it's like if you have something really important that you want it to know about and you want it to focus on, well, you've only got like so big of a list of things that you can get it to focus on. And so like every time I start a new session, you know, it's reading over this memory, it's reading over the instructions, which the instructions are the specific things that I decided are the most important for it to know about. But the memory is what it kind of builds over time, which I don't know. I might just turn the memory off. You know, I figured it was kind of good, but even kind of looking in here, there's not that much stuff that I'm seeing that is actually like every session I wanted to know about all this stuff. This is actually overkill, you know. I'll probably go back through this and just narrow down a whole bunch of these things and add it into my instructions. And I'll probably reset this and then I'll let it stay just so it can gather memory over time, and then I can just kind of keep going back through here and just clearing it out and just taking out the most important aspects. But there's just not a whole lot of things that it needs outside of the actual code base. You know, I wanted to just have the prompt for what I'm working on right now and just some core instructions. And then from there we, you know, it relies on design patterns and just the workflow that we have. You know, I think one of the most important things that I have in here, which if we look in the instructions, you know, I'll just give it some core, the directory location, the log location, the schema location for the database. I'll tell it one of the tools that I want it to use. I don't tell it about every single tool that it has access to, like fetching from the internet, from the browser, just because I don't want it to do that all the time. You know, if I want it to browse the internet for something, then I'll tell it that specifically. And I give it just a few bash coding standards that are kind of specific to my project. And the file upload protocol is probably the most important part of these instructions, which it just makes it so I don't have to keep repeating myself over and over again. You know, I can go into a session and just start talking about something, and it knows that, like, okay, we're just talking about this right now. Like, we'll kind of create a plan, and it's always going to wait for me to say the exact phrase, proceed with updates. That's what tells it, like, okay, we have the plan now, let's implement it. You know, and that's how it's actually going to go in and edit files. And that stops it from, you know, me telling it like, oh, wow, I have this problem. And it being like, okay, yeah, like here's the solution. Let me implement it. You know, it's always going to stop itself and say, well, here's my suggestion. Do you want to proceed with updates? And that just, that keeps it pretty consistent. And then the Git policy, I don't like it making commits either. So, but let's go back here. I've got I really need to call it soon. Let me go about 7 more minutes, and then I'll have to call it for the day. I appreciate y'all hanging out though. Hopefully learning some things, and I offer would look offer any interactions and opinions about how y'all use AI, what y'all think about it. So let's okay, so we can test that out now. Let's do a clear, and we'll do a scripts dev reset user config updated with one new option. Cool. So we can go here and see our config again, and we can see that, yep, it was added in. Cool. That is pretty good. Okay. So I got a little bit off of what I was doing initially, because I said that we were going to actually defeat this edge case today for the splash windows, but we're not totally there. That's okay. Let's see how we want to do this. Okay, let me make sure I reset the scripts. Okay, let's do our app scan real fast. Let's see. Kind of deep in this session, so I think we'll go ahead and start with a new session. We'll get it to analyze our log. So let's do a kdoitall workspace, create test 1, enter 24, window name, virtual desktop, screen, right half, no more applications, focus digicam, and proceed. Okay, created our workspace, and we'll do a kdoitall app info digicam just to see that the safe mode has not been completed, and then kdoitall workspace open test 1. It's going to prompt for safe mode. Oh, before we do this, I should probably actually change that user configuration. Let's go Control P, config, config, and then we'll come down here and we'll turn it on strict. And uncomment that. Control S. Okay. Let's try that again. We'll watch this fail miserably. Come back here. We'll grab our log. I don't want to have to read all the way through. This is what AI is for. Okay, we are testing the splash window detection for safe mode. Let's see, from the output, it looks like verifying window stability. It just verified like the wrong window. I don't know which one it actually verified. I'm not sure. It is not working, but I'm not sure exactly why not. It looks like it detects the first UUID, which is the splash window. And then detects a window shortly after that, which I don't think is the final window. What happened? Oh, I think I didn't close digicam out from before. Let me run this test one more time so I can actually be sure. Can we just control C? Okay. Let's do a clear. Let's try this safe mode again and see what happens. So we can have a clean state when we're testing. Appreciate y'all hanging out with me today. I would appreciate a follow. We're on our working on my first 100 days of streaming. Slowly getting things improved. I just got my chat showing up in the display today. I'm gonna try to get some background music by tomorrow. Maybe some other slight improvements. Need to be posting on social a little bit more. Try to get some more activity in here. But I appreciate you guys' support for hanging out. See what happened that time. Yeah, that was different. Yeah, we just needed a clean slate to launch with. So let's actually give it this output instead of the other one. Let that go for a second. We'll probably get its diagnosis and then we'll have to wrap it up for today. See, going over what we actually did today, which a little bit less than I was hoping for, but so we started looking at all the edge cases that are left for us to address. The main one that we're going to face now, which is probably the easiest, is the splash windows, and then we're also going to have to address in future sessions like dialog windows that pop up. If an application launches and actually has like two windows that it launches with, which would usually be a dialog window and the main window. Sometimes it'll just launch a dialog window, and then you have to confirm through that, and it'll close that window and launch the final window for the application. Other times it'll launch two windows, the dialog and the final window. So that's something I'm going to have to think a little bit more about how to address without making things too complex and whatnot. So yeah, we mostly just worked out what some of the main edge cases are, and then we're working through the splash window. I made some other few small fixes, which was we added strict mode for safe mode and relaxed mode. So safe mode can be required depending on how much metadata has already been gathered. I have a clear picture now. Let me trace through the critical events in the log to show exactly what's happening. Okay, timeline of the launch time measurement phase. We started polling We detected a UUID with the correct class. Then we try to wait for the stable window. We start monitoring for that. Stability check. 1 of 3 alive, 2 of 3 alive, 3 of 3 alive. Declared that one as stable. So that seems like the issue. Maybe it's not. I mean, was that? Right. Yeah, that definitely was not. So I just probably need to make a longer stability check here. Seems like the splash window. Yeah. See, it went for like 1 second. So it looks like the splash window existed for a little bit longer than just 1 second. So you can just extend that a little bit, especially for the safe mode launch process. It should probably be 3 to 4 seconds at least for the stability check. Window minimized, and then get window class. The window class was not found because at that point that splash window did delete itself. So the last line is a smoking gun. The splash window died 175 milliseconds after passing the stability check. It survived just long enough for the stability check, but not long after. Then during the multi-instance test, the real digicam window appears as new untracked windows. Right. Yeah, we definitely don't need to mix those tests up. Okay. Yeah, so we have a good place to start for tomorrow. Should be back on tomorrow. I think we'll start about 1:30 and probably run about the same time, about 1:30 to 5. And I'll try to think of some ways to address the other edge cases so that I don't end up just sitting on stream and banging my head against the wall the entire time. Yes, let's improve the stability threshold to 3 to 5 seconds. 5 seconds is a bit much. Yeah, we'll start with 5 seconds. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. Make sure to shoot me a follow. Check me out on socials. I'm on X, Facebook, streaming on YouTube as well. Don't really have much post on there. I have my Facebook page where I've been posting on, just saying when I'm streaming, but I do need to get into posting on X as well. Like I say, new streamer, trying to get things set up so that I can do this stuff a little bit more easily. But thanks for hanging out, and y'all have a great day.